Carylee Carrington, owner and creator of Read with Carylee, a children's author.
So, what inspired you to create your organization?
Well, really, what inspired me, I had written my first book and I started to go to do author visits at schools. And I saw how kids were just lighting up to meet a real author and, to know that I'm in the neighborhood. So, because, most of the author visits that I've done is in Prince William County. And um, when I saw that, I was just like, okay, I want to be able to not just have children meet me, but I started to, hear from friends that there are so many other children's authors in Prince William County or in the surrounding areas. And I was just like, okay, my children are in school. I don't know any of them. And my mom was a literacy coach, and education has always been in the forefront, reading has always been in the forefront. And I was just like, okay, I would like to meet these other authors, and I'm sure all of these other children would love to as well. So I started, the Read with Carylee show, and just was really wanting to showcase authors in the area. And then when the pandemic happened, it kind of expanded, and I was like, okay, well, schools are closed, libraries are closed. Let me try to see if I could find as many children's authors as I can. And we've been able to, interview and have uh, about 120 authors so far share their stories on the show. And, with that, with coming and finding these authors, I started to see the lack of diversity in children's literature. And that being in, 2020, 2021, that surprised me. I was just like, what? There's only at that time about 11%, and I think we're growing up to 12% now, but there was only that little percentage of children that were being represented in the books that they read. And that to me was shocking, as I said. And um, I am kind of somebody that, like, if I see a problem, I got to try to fix it. That's how I even wrote my first book, because my son came home to me with a problem, and I was just like, okay, I got to fix it. So, and especially with it being for children, and I have two boys, I'm just like, I need to fix this in the world. And that is what led me to start Read with Carylee Inc. and really started to push for diversity in children's literature.
What is it like writing a book for children?
Oh, it's fun. I would say it's fun, but it's kind of a daunting task because I'm an adult,
Yeah.
so I kind of have to put myself back into the frame of mind of a child and, kind of think, okay, what are the questions that I had when I was a child? And I always say my best editors are my sons because they will read through the book and they're like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense, or what do you mean by that? And that helps me to really formulate the book and the content and make sure that they understand it, because I'm not writing for me anymore, I'm writing for them.
Well, with the books, not only learning lessons, but how important is it for kids to, relate or see themselves in these stories?
Yeah, and when people hear me say diversity, they automatically think skin color or gender.
Right.
And that's not all what diversity is. I'm like, I remember when I was growing up, like, just being an adult and thinking back on when I was growing up, and they had the special education classes, or the well, they would say like the short bus, for, the kids that may be handicapped or disabled, or I like to say differently abled, because
Right.
honestly, I've, in my adulthood, I've seen some awesome people who have a quote unquote disability, and they can do things better than I do. So that's what it was for me. It was not just saying, okay, all right, just making sure that children feel seen in the books that they read. I'm like, it's not just for them, it's for their friends. It's in social media has made the world small,
Yeah.
but it still is a big world for somebody that has never gone outside of their town or gone outside of their city. Not every kid gets to go on vacation. So if they can learn about um, a kid that is living in a different country, or actually even living in a different state, because
Yeah.
we are so different even when it comes to state by state. I grew up in New York and I'm now living in Virginia, and it's very different. I'm like,
Yeah.
my kids will not have the childhood that I have. you know so that was the thing for me. Is I believe, coming from New York, where we're like all a melting pot,
Yeah.
and we get to experience different cultures and different situations. I want to basically open the eyes of children who may not be able to know what their friends down the street, or their friends that come to school with them, but they get bused to a different city or a different area. It's really helping children to empathize
Yeah.
with those around them. And I believe that in doing that, we create a more tolerant world, because we're seeing, okay, you know what, that person, that person down the street, or, in a different community, they may have um, a different even family structure than I have, but that's still their family. Like they may have, their grandparents that live with them. They may have, live in a multi generational home, and but that's still their family. So that was one of the reasons why I really went into this and wanted to create well, get access to more diverse books for children.
Yeah. How important is it, different books and different authors for kids' mental health?
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing for their mental health, because if they're, I'm like, if you're being told every day, like, okay, oh, you're a princess, you're a princess, you're a princess, okay, all right, you're gonna believe you're a princess. But if you go and meet somebody, if you go and meet somebody that's a real princess, it's gonna change
Yeah.
things for you. And it not only it opens up the world for children. I believe, if children, especially on an elementary school level and even on a preschool level, are able to see others, or we're able to open up the window for them, it'll be, I believe that it'll be less bullying, instead of, a child going and saying, okay, all right, you're different from me, so that's a bad thing. They can understand the world that their classmate might be in. They could understand their classmate that may have cerebral palsy, or may learn differently, even be dyslexic. Okay, they learn differently. It's not that they're better than me or I'm better than them. It's just that we just do things a little differently. And I believe, in involving children in those books and those teachings, and opening their eyes to those stories, it creates a better sense of the world that we live in. And it's just not, okay, well, I am beautiful because I have straight blonde hair. It's okay, you're beautiful. Your hair may be curly and red, or
Right.
whatever color, but it's not bad. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not indifferent. It's just, that's just the way it is for you.
What are some of the things you've learned from your kids?
Ooh, there's a lot. I have two boys. I grew up with all girls, and that in itself is a different dynamic. And especially with growing up with children now, like I said, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and my kids are here growing up in Northern Virginia. It's a totally different world for them. So even trying to navigate that is, a learning curve on its own. But um, my children have my children have taught me, um I wouldn't say tolerance, but it's really helping them to see the world differently. We do live in a different world than even how it was 30 years ago, and my children have really um taught me that, like, even being together is definitely a great thing. And opening to learning different things, learning different cultures. um I have, especially like I said, with having boys, I have pushed myself to um going a little bit more, like, being into cars, and doing the Pinewood Derby with them and things like that. It's just like, I never thought that I would be doing that. And even doing Read with Carylee and putting on my tutu and saying, okay, well, you know what, I'm going out there not just to entertain, but to change children's lives, to really help them to see beyond their streets and their avenues and their towns. No,
What
I
is,
hope I answered the question.
yeah, no, that was great. What is it like talking with other authors?
Oh, it's incredible, because yeah, I'm coming into this space. I called myself the accidental author because I really didn't think that I would be getting into writing children's books. Um, and just seeing that there's kind of that solidarity with wanting to create lessons for children, and you know just even speaking to authors in different countries, the same thing that we're trying to create here with having more diversity in children's literature in the US, it's happening all over.
Yeah.
And there are some really awesome authors with awesome content, and we all have a different perspective. When I entered the children's book arena, I Googled, like, how many children's book titles there were on Amazon. And at that time, it was like 80,000. And that was pre pandemic. And, a lot of people started writing during the pandemic. So it, I know it's probably doubled and tripled by now. But yeah, being able to speak with different authors and get their perspectives. And, the one question that I always ask is, what was their favorite book growing up? And getting those different perspectives and seeing, well, it's getting the different perspectives and also seeing that we read a lot of the same books. We had
Yeah.
a lot of the same books. And now, you know, the funny thing is, if I walk into my child's school, a lot of the books that they have on display are the same. And that's touching in a sense, but I'm just like, the world has changed in 30 years.
Yes.
So we need to have new authors. We need to have new perspectives and new books.
You do a lot to, help others and get this message out, but what do you do to help your own mental health?
Yoga. I have really, especially since the pandemic, um, you have to care about your mental health. I'm in the gym almost 5 days a week. I make sure that, when my kids go to school, I have that time to be able to have that balance for myself, take care of my health mentally and physically, and really uh, do the best that I can. Because if I'm not out here taking care of me, then I'm not able to do the work that I do.
And just talking to you brought up a memory of when I was in elementary school all the way to high school, I was in learning disability classes. So I always felt, not like the normal kid out of the thing. So do you hear from, even parents and families that they can connect to your stories?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Even publishing my second book, Pretty Hair, before I published it, and I was going through the process. I sat with another author, she and friend of mine. She's not a children's author, but you know, I told her about the book, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, I was that girl. I was that girl." And she was like, "I wish that I had that book when I was younger, because she didn't like her hair." I'm like, she said, her hair was blonde and stringy, and there was a young African American girl that was in her classes, and she would have her hair braided and everything, and she loved her hair. And I was just like, well, yeah, that's really the gist of the book. It's just like, one girl is it like they're both admiring each other's hair and thinking that, oh, okay, well, that's pretty hair. And we're being told like all the time, like, oh, that's pretty and that's normal, and beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, like they always say. And I've had parents reach out to me, with my first book. Everyone just like me, if their children have glasses and they don't want to wear glasses because they feel like they're going to be made fun of. And it's just so many different lessons that you can take from each book. And even with my latest, Maya Sings Country, I have so many adults come to me and say, oh my gosh, that was me. I was the little girl that loved country music, and everybody is like, what? you know so there are lessons that resonate with everybody, children and adults alike. And that's one of the things that I love, is just that, okay, yes, in some ways, like, I in probably every book that I've written so far, that I've published so far, has a little bit of me inside of it. So it's not just talking to children of today, it's talking to the child that I was. And I know people that grew up the same time I did, or even older. They have some of that in them. It's unfortunately, there are lessons in life that sometimes don't go away,
Yeah.
even in the different generations. It just affects us differently.
So where do you want to see your mission in the next 3 to 5 years?
Ah, in the next 3 to 5 years, I definitely would love to push the Read with Carylee show
Yeah.
to even greater avenues. Next year, we're actually going to be coming out on another streaming channel, Mogul TV. So we're going to be doing that. We're still going to be on YouTube, and hopefully we can get into bigger spaces
Yeah.
to be able to introduce authors to children. I know that there are just so many authors that are backed. Well, actually, you know what? It's a handful of authors really
Yeah.
that are backed by the major publishing companies. And not that I don't like the traditional publishing companies, because they were the ones that brought me the books
Yeah.
that I read when I grew up. But I think in this space now, in this time where we have Amazon KDP, and we have so many other publishing companies or there are a lot of authors self-publishing. I want to see them be able to really get the recognition and the flowers that they deserve. Because especially right now, self-published authors are putting out content for today's children. You know, there were so many. I was able to come across, I think maybe five or six authors, five or six children's authors that had different perspectives on children being able to cope with COVID, and children being able to cope with, mental health. Mental health was not something that we spoke about prevalently even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that is something that we need now. And I know, a lot of the major publishing houses, they have their criteria and they have, what they have gone with all along. And sometimes it takes a self-published author to come and give a different perspective and come and wake things up and shake things up a little bit. Like even with the scholastic, I would say debacle that we had this past October, where they had authors that 64 authors that they put on a list and said, teachers, librarians, you can opt out of having these authors represented in the Scholastic Book Fair because their content spoke about race. And it wasn't that it was blaming anyone, or I'm like, Amanda Gorman was on that list.
Oh.
And that is shocking. I'm like, she was the poet for the president,
Yeah.
and her book, I'm like, I, I think she's probably like 25, maybe
Yes.
25 years old
Yeah.
right now. And her book was put on a list to be, kind of segregated. So it's things like those that I'm fighting against as well. We got to fight against the book bans. If there is a book that you don't want your child to read, that's you don't your child doesn't have to read it. I'm like, there are books that, I won't give my children right now because I don't think that they are probably wouldn't be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Or, it's subjects that I want to speak to them about before someone puts that book in their hands. But that is a choice that I have to make. I'm not going to make that choice for some other child, or some other parent. So, like I said, it's things like that um, Read with Carylee, the foundation is fighting against and trying to help parents and teachers and community leaders be more aware of, the content that's out there that they should have in the hands of their children.
How can people reach out and learn more?
Well, yes, they can definitely go on readwithcarylee.org. We're going to be doing a lot, a lot more in 2024. I am always active on my Instagram, Read with Carylee. All of our social media is Read with Carylee as well. And yeah, anyone can email me at info@readwithcarylee.com to be able, yes, at readwithcarylee.com to be able to connect with me and even invite me out to do an author visit or a book talk, or I actually do offer now training for diversity in children's literature in schools and in organizations as well. So, people can reach out to me and let's make that connection and get more diverse books in children's hands.